Hey y'all, insight number 3. So we're looking at what to do. Now in the last time we looked at what not to do when you're ministering or comforting those that stand in comfort, mourn with those, and what not to do in those situations, even though they thought they were doing their best. It's what not to do. This is what to do. Okay, this is how to best minister to someone in need. So this is another friend called Elihu. Now we don't exactly know when he arrives, but it does say that he was the youngest and he gave respect to those that were older to speak. It also gives a bit of his genealogical line, and that's in chapter 32, I think. He turns up in 31, I believe. Anyway, chapter 32. But anyway, chapter 32, he says, he answers in anger. He actually gets pretty mad at these guys for trying to blame Job for what's happened to him, because he has a testimony of Christ just like Job does, and says, this is not the Christ I know. So Elihu, true friend of comfort, good dude. So he's there. It doesn't say that he's specifically a friend, but I think he becomes a friend of Job. But he's there anyway, for whatever reason. Maybe he was traveling with the other 3 and felt to speak up. But in verse 4, it says that he'd waited till Job had spoken because they were elder than he. And when there was no answer in the mouth of these 3 men, then his wrath was kindled. They couldn't come up with an answer. They had discussed for many chapters, because we're in 32 from chapter 1 where we started, or chapter 4 where we started. So there's been this big discussion and still no answers are found. Job has rebuked all their suggestions of why this has happened, and they're still trying to figure it out. So Elihu's all like, okay, look, I've given respect to your opinions. You still haven't found an answer. Now I'm going to tell you the real truth here. He goes on to say who he is, and that great men are not always wise, neither do the aged understand judgment. So he's saying, look, you're really good people, but doesn't mean you're wise. Let me speak. Let me speak with the Spirit even. He says in chapter 33, which is where we're going to go, he tells that he will speak with the Spirit of God, and he's speaking with the Spirit and of the testimony that he has. So you want to look at, and again, these are in the notes, so you want to look at 32, 3 to 22, that's where Elihu enters in. And then when he's speaking, 33, 6 to 8, verse 12 and verse 26, really good ones. 35, 14, 37, 14. These are really good lessons from Elihu. He says other good stuff too, but if you're focusing just on key points, those are the ones you want to listen to. Okay, so still no answer is found. Elihu speaks up and teaches Job and us how to minister, how to support, and that God is greater than man. And that's in 33:12. He says, behold, in this thou art not just. I will answer thee that God is greater than man. What does that mean? That means that no matter what we're going through, God can overcome it. He's got more knowledge and power than we do. And he understands it, and if we want to learn it, he will teach us. How many times in the scriptures does it say the mysteries of God will be unfolded unto you? If you're, valiant in trying to learn these things, you will learn them. So that's what he says there. And it says he teaches us that we might not have answers, yet we can find them together. Because he says, let's do this together. Verses 1 to 6 of 33. It's like, look, we don't have all the answers, but let's do this together. Let's stick together and do this together. So he also is not picking on anyone or blaming anybody. That's what we're not supposed to do, right? We're not picking anyone and we're not blaming anyone. He's like, let's just do this together. It really doesn't matter why this happened. We're not going to assign blame. We're just going to move forward and do better. And that's what we're all about right here. So I kind of love this guy that he says that, because we're all about that here on this platform. It's about not beating up on ourselves in the past. It's about looking what we can do to improve and moving forward and doing that. And that is what the gospel is, people. That really is. We don't know how to get there yet, but God will prevail and deliver. Trust God. Yes, trust God. And then focus on what you do know of God and his goodness. Remember how he has already blessed you. He will again and more. And I think that's over in 37:14. Let me just check that. 37:14, yeah. Hearken unto this, O Job, stand still and consider the wondrous works of God. So no matter what you're going through, just stand still for a moment and just look at some of the amazing things that exist in this world that you have already known, the miracles that you do know and do see. And if like God can do that, he can help you too. Okay? So that's, just pause and do that. That's really cool. Really, really good points from Elihu. Really go through and try and read those and learn from them, because that's what to do when you need to go and comfort and mourn with someone who needs help. Or even if it's a self-fix, like you're struggling with this, there's some things to look at that are going to help you. Elder Bedner said, only as we gather together in one, all things in Christ, with firm focus upon him, can gospel truth synergistically enable us to become what God desires us to become. Now you're like, what? Synergistically? That's a big word. It is. It just means that all the pieces work together. It's just a really big fancy word for all the bits come together and work really well and form this beautiful, like, coloured chain, if you will, of just all the goodness. So if we come together in one, all things with Christ, all things in Christ, so we've got to look at all the parts that we're doing with firm focus upon him. That's important. That's when gospel truths synergistically, they all work together. They enable us to become what God desires us to become. And this is what Job really wanted to do. He was trying to figure this out with his friends. They're trying to talk about it. So there you go. All right, that's number 3. I'll see you soon for insight number 4. We're going to talk about what Job knows. That's really, really cool. All right. One thing, chapter 38 is the beautiful poem about that God speaking. Jesus is speaking, really. And it just, Jesus is speaking. God of the Old Testament, but Jesus is speaking. And it's just beautiful words, even in English. You can imagine the Hebrew. I want to find the Hebrew online. If somebody speaks Hebrew, wants to give us chapter 38, because it's so beautiful. There's such a beautiful expression from Jesus about his love for us, how he did everything that he's done to help us and to help us to know, even, or to really show us, and that we can know that there is so much more than just this life, and that what we're preparing for here, what we're learning to do here, is just going to be amazing in the future. So awesome chapter to read if you want to just pick one and just sit there with it and meditate. But yeah, hang around. We're going to continue on back in Job 13. So jumping around a bit, but you'll see why. Okay, see you there.